Welcome to Freedom Decoded. This podcast is from us. We are Carey and Demir Bentley, productivity coaches and co-founders of the Lifehack Method. This format is where we are going two-on-one. Demir and I both coaching one of our amazing Lifehack Tribe members on the productivity issues that are keeping them stuck and keeping them held back from their highest self and from achieving their ideal life. So we hope you enjoyed this in-depth coaching session. It is completely raw and unfiltered, and we hope that you get so much out of it.
All right, welcome. Today we're talking with Jo Schoenmaker, 31-year-old solopreneur who's built her life around her business and staying disciplined with her routines. Her days are structured with focus-made sessions, accountability calls, regular gym workouts, daily walks. So on paper, Jo has created a strong framework for productivity and consistency and has been a tribe member for a while. But the challenge she's bringing to us today is what happens after that structure runs out. So in the mornings and early afternoons, Jo's on track and executing well, but once dinner rolls around, energy dips, and she struggles to follow through with her evening plans. So what she really wants is to unlock the second half of her day, not by chasing it, but by sustaining momentum and igniting a positive loop where she's actually working more and enjoying the work more. So in this session, we're going to be exploring why evenings are feeling like a wall for her and what's really draining her energy and how we can really finally crack the code on turning these evenings and nights into some of the most productive and satisfying hours of the day. When I said that, how does that land with you, Jo?
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. I feel like I've got like sort of the base level of productivity under control, but when I try to go to the next level, I don't know, I struggle.
So, Carey, do you mind if I launch in here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, the first question that I feel like I have is, if you're having productive days, why do you feel like you need to be productive into the night? Maybe double click on me a little bit. Like, I don't work in the night, I just chill out. So why do you feel like you need to work in the night? Or are you saying that like even your personal, like things you'd want to do for yourself personally, feel like you just don't have energy for?
Both. I also feel like that, but I feel when I think of when I was at my best, I was working a lot. And I just feel like the more I work, the more I enjoy it, the more progress I make, the easier it is for me to do. And I feel like it becomes this reinforcing loop where I'm really on fire. And I just feel when I work for like 6 focus make sessions, 50 minutes focus make sessions a day, I'm doing okay. I'm making progress, but I'm not really getting into that flow of excitement. And I kind of like to be obsessed. I'm different from most people. So I'm not really looking for like work-life balance. And I mean, of course, there are a few other things that I like to do, but I also notice, for example, when I read a really interesting book, then I want to keep reading the book. So when the next day comes around, I don't even want to do my first hours of work because I want to continue with the book. So I feel for me, it's better to have this sort of all or nothing periods where I just go all in for like 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, then take a break. I don't like even a weekend break messes with my brain, and I need like 2-3 days to get back into what I was actually doing. So I like every day to be the same. I even have that with holidays. Like people tell me you should go on holidays more. I've just gotten back from a 2-week holiday. It's taking me 2 weeks to even get back into what I was doing. So that's one part. And then if that's not something I can really ignite, I just need to wait for it to happen. Then I would at least like to have my evenings and end of afternoons to do something where I feel proud of myself for doing it, where I get energy from the activity. Because if I just watch Netflix series, I start to daydream throughout the day. I don't like that. If I go on walks, it's nice, but I don't want to do 4 hours of walks. I like to chill with like my family or friends, but I don't want to do that for like 4 to 6 hours every day. But everything I find interesting intellectually, it costs great energy to do it. And I'm afraid of starting that other project that then splits my focus. I'm really bad at context switching.
Yeah. I'll just recap what I'm hearing, but it sounds like you and I have a lot in common.
I was going to say, I was like, this is a lot similar to how Demir operates.
Yeah. And there's some really good pros and some really terrible cons to being what I call an emotional worker. An emotional worker is not like emotionally erratic or crying or anything like that. What I mean by emotional worker is that there's a certain type of emotion that we want to feel around our work. And if we don't feel it, then we don't work. And when we do feel it, we almost overwork because we want to hold on and grasp onto that feeling. So there's almost like a physical or psychological feeling that we're chasing in our work. And the pro of that is that often people like me and you we can get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. We're very passionate. And so when that passion is unlocked, we can just go deep and really, climb mountains in very short periods of time and do, feats of productivity. There's other pros to it too. Another one that's worth mentioning is that we're looking for the muse. And when we catch the muse, we want to, suck all of that juice dry. We really want to get everything from that moment. The con is that this is a pretty ill-suited way of working as you get older and older and older, because life does a couple things to you typically as you get older. One, your energy declines, and it declines little by little by little, but take it from me as a 45-year-old man, you notice it. There's a point at which, like in your late 30s, you're like, something's different. Like I really notice and feel that lack of energy. And I wonder if this is, let's pin this, we'll come back to it, but I wonder if this is an early warning sign of like, that indefatigable energy that you experienced earlier in your youth you're starting to see like early signs of like, I don't have that sort of never stop energy where I could just go round the clock or just push right into the evening, right? Pin that, we'll come back to that. The other thing is that as you keep going on, if you choose to have houses and businesses and kids and partners and all of these things that we tend to accrue as we move on in life, these things ask us to be more consistent, right? And work against us in sort of going with the flow and leaning into that passion-based and emotion-based workflow. So the problem with kids is you got to stop right at 3 o'clock. They're home from school and you just got to be there with them, right? And so with businesses and houses, like they need that sort of consistent and continual showing up. This type of workflow has worked for me less and less as I've gotten older and older, if that makes sense. Right? Carey, do you want to jump in here real quick before we keep going on?
I agree. Obviously, like I think we can talk about strategies to optimize too for actually what Gio is talking about. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, hey, you have actual adult responsibilities too as your business grows as well. Like that, when we were starting our business, I felt that sort of passion and energy for everything business related. Like I just wanted to immerse myself in it, and everything was interesting. Writing all the emails, writing all the sales pages, all the online, like everything. I was just like, yes, let's just do this all day. And it was so much fun. But as the business has grown, I've had to change my responsibilities so much. And now there's like the sheer volume of work is so great that I would never be able to get it all done, even if I did work all hours. So I think I've had to sort of shift how I work as well to still have moments where it's super, super fun like that. And I can just immerse myself. And sometimes that does actually happen at night, because at nighttime, nobody's distracting you. So if you have a client heavy sort of inbox during the day, nighttime can actually be a really good time to get that feeling back. But certainly just the overall structure of work has changed for me personally.
I know this isn't good news. I'm not delivering great news to you, because I think the question was, how do I get back to that flow that I felt before? How do I sustain that flow? How do I dive deeper? And I'm not saying you have to stop today or tomorrow or next week. I am just throwing a little flag on the field to let you know that this might serve you less and less and less as you get older, both because of what you're physically able to draw out of your body and your mind, and because of the circumstances of life may increasingly conspire to prevent you from having those big, long blocks of runway where you can just run the plane. I say this with so much deep empathy, though, because I still want to do it. Like, if I could, if my life would let me, if Carey would let me, like I would love to just let myself off the chain and get back to that. I am going to tell you how to optimize. And I'm not going to stay on this thread of like telling you the bad news. But I do want to just say one more thing before we move back, which is it is not as bad moving over to the dark side as you think. My journey over the last 10 years has been a journey more towards, like, I used to have big peaks and troughs where when I was at the top, oh man, I could have, just incredible ideas, just long work hours, everything that was coming out just felt like incredible. But then I would have troughs too, where, like you said, I would come back from a vacation and it would take me 2 weeks to get back onto track, right? What's been beautiful about the transformation is I can count on myself more. I can sit down and it doesn't take me a long time to start. Like I'm starting faster and I'm plugging into what I need to be doing faster. And I'm more able to do things I don't really want to do, but do them in excellence increasingly. Because it used to be that I would do the things I wanted to do, but then everything I didn't want to do just like sort of fell by the wayside because I was passion based, I was emotion based, and I needed to generate an emotion in order to do my best work. And now I'm able to do my best work without having to generate some kind of like magical feeling. It often felt like I was praying to the gods for rain and doing the rain dance, like, where is it? I want that feeling. Where's that feeling? And now I don't need the feeling. I can deliver consistently. Feels a lot more adult. And it's more reliable. It's more consistent. I'm not doing a rain dance for it to rain. It's like I can make the water come, right? So just so you know, it's not like, oh, you're giving up something. It is beautiful. I just want to acknowledge it's a beautiful thing. I've been there. Like, oh, it's just incredible. Like feats of productivity. But A, it's not going to last because your body and your psychology won't let it last as we age. B, life is going to conspire to like condense your life and put more in it, and you're not going to be able to have these big long blocks where you get uninterrupted. And then C, it's really nice on this side. Like it's actually really nice, and I actually don't even want to go back to that. So that's my little like bad news lecture. How is that landing with you before we get into the good news?
I think I get where you're coming from because I do feel like most weeks I am more the consistent person that's just working like 6 hours a day. But I actually, most of the time, am not in that flow where I would want to be. Yeah. The other thing that I want to mention is I do not want kids. I don't even know if I want to live together with someone.
Yeah.
Because also in my 30s and 40s and 50s, I really like being at least able to have a lot of control over my time. And for example, in my business, I have one coaching call a month. And I have like 30 minutes to an hour of admin that I need to do every day. But other than that, I don't have a lot of specific time commitments. So I do think when it comes to the circumstance, I'm not saying nothing will change, but I am pretty damn certain that
So even forget the kids. I mean, I think what Carey was mentioning is like, also like, what if your business gets bigger and becomes like sort of a child, and then, right now you're on the front end of it, but like, believe me, like you get to, just like a marriage, you get to periods in your business where you're like not totally enamored of it anymore, but you have to keep going, right? So, it's not just kids that I'm talking about, right? I'm going to pivot, but I want to toss to Carey real quick before we pivot towards the good news.
Yeah, no, I think you clarified sort of your perspective and the journey we've been on here, which is sort of similar to Gio's journey, right? Like starting an online business, which, by the way, she has an amazing business teaching digital course creators how to beautify their Google Docs so they don't look like super lame Google Docs templates. They look really gorgeous. So thank you for that, Gio. I just purchased her program today.
Where can they find it?
Yeah, what's the link?
mightygrowthlab.com.
mightygrowthlab.com. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, I think just, fast forwarding another 10 years or so, things seem to change very rapidly for us. Digital course creators, we have to every single year is different. So yeah, we want to build you the kind of workflow that has that flexibility to where you're not having any kind of rigid structure that you have to adhere to, because rigidity has a fragility to it that Demir and I really strongly dislike when it comes to work. The best way to build resiliency for yourself and for your lifestyle and for your business is to have a flexible and strong workflow. So Demir, feel free to take it from here and talk about the positives of this scenario.
So if you check out a book called Daily Rituals by Demir Carey, I'm going to spoil it, so close your ears, anybody, if you don't want to get the spoiler alert. But what's amazing about reading that book is it's got the daily rituals and working habits of like the most famous people in the world, scientists, artists. And, spoiler alert, at the end, you basically realize there's no common thread. Like you start reading the book thinking, okay, this is going to tell me that I'm supposed to wake up at 5 o'clock and I'm supposed to work in these hours. And the variance is insane. People work in the morning, some people work at night, some people work long hours, some people work short hours. Some people wait for the muse to hit them and then work, and some people just work through and find the muse while they're working. Some people work stone cold sober. Some people work high as a kite. I mean, it's literally no common thread, which actually is freeing because you get to sort of say, okay, I'm an N of one study, meaning it really, if there is no template that I need to template myself to, I'm really just, the information is not out there, it's in here, right? So you can make any workflow work, right? You really can. You can make any workflow work if you're connected to reality. This is where it doesn't work, when you start ignoring signals. So you're getting a signal in the afternoon that your energy is expending, right? It's the magical thinking of ignoring that signal that's going to prevent you from really optimizing into your best workflow. So we want to make sure that, yes, we're saying I can make any workflow work. If I want to work anyway, I can find a way to do so. Whatever floats your boat, as long as it's also taking in real information from the world of like, okay, something's not working because I'm getting a real slump in the afternoon, right? So that's the good news, is frankly, like, you can make anything work. The other thing is, if you're on this side of the spectrum of being like a passion-based and emotional-based worker, just a little bit of that other side is going to counterbalance you a lot. So just a little bit of the planning and execution and focus, just a little bit of having a life map that keeps you staying on the right track. You don't need to be 50-50. Right? You can be 80-20 or even 90-10, and that 10% over here on the opposite side of your natural work rhythm is really going to level you out and balance you out so that you're not paying the worst price of being an emotion-based worker, if that makes sense, right? So talk to me a little bit more about these afternoon slumps and when they hit and how they hit. And it sounds like you're saying that the worst part of them is they almost stop you from continuing that flow. Like, seems to me that you said, I get started working in the afternoon, I get some momentum, I'd like to keep going, but my energy won't let me keep going. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So I do usually 4 focus mate sessions after breakfast or just in the morning, and then have lunch, and then I do 2 more. And then it's around 2:20 in the afternoon. And then 3 days a week, I go to the gym for a super short gym session with a sauna and ice bath that they have there. Then I do have some energy because I feel like the ice bath is really good for regenerating my energy. But I do walk home, which is like a 30-minute walk. And I feel like whenever I get energy from something throughout the afternoon or evening, it's fragile energy. What I mean by it is I can feel energized, but the moment I start to sort of capitalize on it, I noticed that it leaves my body very quickly. So, and that's also what I sometimes find hard with the energy tracking. I'm like, I feel the energy right now, but I'm not quite sure I could put it to use. So
Yeah.
that's something. And on the other days, I just noticed that sometimes I go for a walk, but even then I already feel like I like going on a walk, but I feel like I have to drag myself. I feel like most of the time I just want to go for a nap. Sometimes I do take a nap. I never really feel really energized after the nap. So I don't feel it's the best thing to do. And for a walk, it's the same. I can feel kind of energized when I come back from the walk, but as soon as I try to do something, it's sort of And even things that I find really interesting, like I'm a big productivity nerd, so I like watching the videos of Lifehack, going through the roadmap, taking notes, and trying to implement it. But especially the implementation part, it's the most useful part. But that requires more brain power to really think about, okay, how am I going to do this? And then I just noticed that even though I find it interesting and I like it, I can't really get myself to do it.
It seems like what you're saying is your ideal situation is that this slump in energy wouldn't happen. You'd be able to just charge through like you've experienced yourself do previously.
Yeah.
Carey, I'm just checking with you. What are you thinking so far?
Yeah, thinking many things. So there's good energy and there's bad energy. So you're discovering that there's only a certain amount of good energy per day. Really. Like when I've seen Demir, when he's trying to create like a big course, or in fact, when he created the original Lifehack Bootcamp content, most of which we still use today, he would work a lot at night because he was undistracted. He was super passionate at that time, but he would change his day schedule. So he would wake up much later in the day. He would really just kind of like wander around the house for, in my mind, seemed like hours of just pointless, tidying or calling somebody or tooling around that he was doing because he was trying to save that like best energy period for his nighttime work. He did also focus a lot on just having a good quality sleep too. Even 30 minutes of extra sleep per night can either accrue or really cause problems with energy. And it's unique to every person. And I know there's a lot of studies going around right now where it's like, do we even need sleep that much? Or do we need lots of sleep? And who really knows? I think it's depends on the person, but that can be a big factor. So I would think, like for me, if you're looking to get more out of your evenings, it could be a shift in how you're spending your mornings. You might have to make some kind of trade-off there, which is totally fine. Another thing that Demir and I do is if we want to change our energy in the evening, say we have energy, we want to do something, the intent is there, the energy is not because of life. What can really help is a complete context switch. So going from working by ourselves at the computer to going and having a dinner with a mentor or a friend where we're talking about something that's exciting to us and we're getting those ideas. And that actually is very productive because if it's the right person, if it's the right ideas, that feeds directly into what we're doing on a daily basis with Lifehack Method. So that's just one example of how sometimes even when we're feeling completely beat, we can get back out there and have a really productive evening session, even without, by changing up how we actually spend that time.
I would say one of the realities that I can guarantee you is going to happen is you are just going to find that the amount of tier one energy hours that you have, those would be the hours that you feel that you are the most creative, you're doing the best work, it's going to compress. Right. And one of the things that typifies people in their 20s and earlier is that they experience no compression. Right. It's like literally they can just sort of like just push through every single limit. I experienced, everybody is a little bit different, but I noticed really clearly in my late 30s that it almost sort of took a big step down and then another big step down in my sort of like early to mid 40s. And that just meant that even if the willingness to keep working on something was there, the ability to just charge through those slumps in energy just didn't go away. If you're hoping that I'll find like some amazing thing where it's like, yeah, there's a way that you can, even into your late 30s and mid 40s and even beyond, you're just going to be able to like charge through and work like hours and hours. No, you're going to have to find a different way of working. I think Carey like sort of suggested this, but I'm going to underline it. I have found that there's a rhythm for me. And again, you're an N of one study. So you want to do your energy tracker and just really vibe into and experiment with your own energy. But I've seen this as a common thread where a lot of people will have at some point, maybe it's a little bit biased towards the morning, maybe it's the late morning, but people will have this sort of 4 hours of great tier one energy in the meat of their day somewhere. Sometimes Carey, it's almost like as soon as she wakes up, she could get out of bed, turn over, and start writing a chapter of a book, right? Like it just hits her. I need like 2 or 3 hours of being awake to even think about sitting at my desk. And even then I'm still warming up a little bit. I got to get going, right? So I'd say it's about 10 o'clock in the morning for me. So 10 to 1 is typically like 10 to 11, 11 to 12. It was like 10 to 2. 10 to 2 is like my good period. I get a very strong energy slump around 2. The more that I have like dialed in sleep, all this kind of stuff, like I used to take naps around 2 o'clock. That was my answer. I'm needing those naps less and less. And we can talk about why I think that is, but I'm needing fewer and fewer naps. But you're right. When I come back after like taking a walk or whatever, that afternoon time is very rarely my best energy. It tends to be this sort of second tier energy where I could still be doing something, but I'm just clearly not doing my best work like I was earlier in the day. However, and this is interesting, I've actually given myself permission to just sign off, because what happens when I'm in lower tier energy is I start working slower and doing worse work. Meaning I've literally had, when I'm working from like 3 to 5 on a book, I'll go back and everything I wrote from 3 to 5, I just delete the next day. It's not even work. It was wasted time effectively. So if I just stop working, help Carrie with dinner, be with my kids, like it's a good time. Like I'm still very present. I'm still like wanting to play with it's not like I'm drained and I need to go to sleep. It's just, I'm not. This is why we have the 5 tiers of energy to create some nuance in how you classify. So I'm still good tier 3. I'm happy to be with the kids, happy to go to dinner with friends, happy to hang out, happy to take a walk. I wouldn't want to go to the gym. I wouldn't want to do something like really mentally challenging. But here's the funny part. Hang out with the kids, put the kids to bed, all that kind of, I can actually go at 8 o'clock and from like 8 to 11, have another killer 3-hour block. Like fantastic 3-hour block. So I think some of it is due to actually just mental. I think some of it is a mental exhaustion where I want to open up the possibility that you think sometimes physical exhaustion is actually just mental exhaustion. And your body is registering that and saying, hey, we need you to stop. You're mentally exhausted, but since you're not stopping, what we're going to do to make you stop is we're actually going to make you tired. And so I tend to have a little bit of narcolepsy when I'm overwhelmed, or I'm running too hot, or I'll just like sort of like fall off in the middle of whatever I'm doing. I've actually found that a short meditation or anything that will take me away from my current context and let me cool off a little bit can sometimes help me eke out like another 30 minutes or an hour. I don't want to exaggerate it. Like you're going to get 8 hours, right? But like if you allow yourself to cool off a little bit, you may find that it wasn't physical exhaustion. It was actually a little bit of mental exhaustion. You can come back and re-engage with it. But also sometimes a longer step away of just give myself the evening, not push myself to that low productivity period, go do something else that I want to do that's good for me, that's beneficial to my life, and then come back around a little bit in that after dinner period. And I always vibe into it. If it's there, I claim it. If it's not, I don't force it, right? Like I sit down, I'll do 30 minutes of like, I usually know within 30 minutes if it's there or not. If it's not there, I'm going to step away. If it is there, I'll claim it. Does that make sense? Now I know that's truncated. That means you get 4 hours in the day, maybe plus a couple hours of tier 3 doing meetings or low value work. And then maybe there's that little bit that you can claim in the night that still feels like, whoa, I can do some of my best work in those hours, but it's not contiguous. And I think what you were asking me is like, how do I get it to be contiguous? And I can't.
I don't necessarily need it to be continuous, but I think it makes a lot of sense because I do think in my weeks that I was at my best, I would usually go for a walk in the late afternoon, maybe get some wine with friends, whatever, and then have another block in the evening. I think it's interesting what you said. I claim it if it works, and otherwise, I really love every day to be the same. I know that's strange because most people like different things, but so I find it annoying when I have to like, okay, I have to just see if it's there today. But I do think that might actually be a good thing to try. And I think another thing for me is usually because I don't work in the evenings, I find it hard to work in the evenings. But I know once when I do it often enough, not even every night, my brain starts to realize, oh yeah, we can actually do this thing in the evening. So I think that's something I can definitely try to
It's also that sort of block there in the well, we call it like the, post bedtime, but for you, it'd just be the evening. For us, it's after the kids are asleep. I really like doing tasks that require not as much brain power necessarily, but do require a lot of focus and are long. So I'll often do my monthly budgeting in that block where I need to have like a million spreadsheets open and tabs, and I need to focus without interruption. And it's really actually feels like a gift to myself to do it at that time because I know there's nothing that's going to interrupt me and break my flow and then keep me from getting back to my place, which is the most annoying thing. So you can think about just also scheduling, and when you're calendarizing your week, sort of breaking off those big chunks to slot in a couple days. And again, like Demir said, not every day, because if you're not feeling it, you want to have the flexibility to move it to a different day. But that can be something to consider too.
Yeah.
One thing you said that also hit me was like the different type of work where you change the context. I do find that most of my coaching calls and the call like this, they're in the evenings because I'm in Europe. So the time zone difference makes that oftentimes coaching calls and things like that are in my evenings. Those I can do. Even like I have the energy to sustain it, and I actually get energy from it most of the time because it's interesting, because you're interacting with people and you kind of got to keep going. Whereas if you're creating something, it's really easy to stare at the ceiling.
Yeah. This is basically an advertisement for the T in the FAST section of Lifehack Tribe, right? And so what we do in the T, FAST, focus, attitude, stamina, time, the T section is where we actually do time and energy tracking. So again, back to this concept of you're really embarking on a study that's a study of you, right? So how do we do self-studies? Usually it's through a series of experiments that we run, right? So the first thing would be, let's get a baseline, 2 weeks, time, energy, baseline, do an analysis on that. You're going to get a ton of value just in that first analysis. It's almost like looking at a painting from across the room. Looks fine. Get up close to it with a microscope. There's cracks, there's UV damage, right? You see things that you don't see when you're from far away, when you get up close to it. And so the cool thing is there's immediate benefits that you get right away where you just slap yourself on the head and say, why am I doing it like that? That's just clearly the wrong way for me. But even over time, that gives you a baseline where now you can start to run a series of experiments where you say, okay, did the 2 weeks, learn some things. Now let's experiment. Let's do it this way this week. Do it for that way for 1 or 2 weeks. Vibe into it. How did that feel? Did I have more? Did I get into the pocket more? Did I find that flow more? Yes, no, tweak. Next week, right? So the way that we do a self-study like this is almost like every week becomes like a little loop, or 2-week periods if you prefer to like give yourself a little bit more time to vibe into it. If you're really noticing and if you're tracking yourself, you'll start to learn, more of this, less of this. Okay, and then life will happen and it'll be like, oh, by coincidence, this happened. And actually I learned a really good lesson from that. That's actually better to do it than this way, or that's actually worse to do it than this way. And you start in that loop, and the loop is only informed by you, yourself, and you, right? That's it. You are only taking in information based on what you learned from running that experiment, and then sort of designing a new experiment and running that. I have no doubt in my mind that if you did that even for 3 months, you would dial into something that was infinitely better than where you're at right now, both for your work and your workflow, but also for your life flow. Because that's also a factor here too, where it's like, okay, well, for me, it's kids. For you, it might be going out to drinks with your friends. You find that balance where, okay, when I do it like this, I get great work days. I've got an even flow. I've matched my task appropriately to the kind of energy that task required. I get good blocks of deep work. I can tap into the pocket or that full focus flow, often. And I get to taste that excitement often, but I also get to show up in my personal life in the way that I need to. And it's well adjusted for my personal life.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I've been doing the time and energy tracking for the past 2 weeks, and I plan to do the analyzed yesterday, but I didn't do it in your Excel sheet because I didn't find it really pretty.
It wasn't pretty enough.
That's why we need you.
But my software doesn't have like an export function. So now I'm like, oh, that is awesome. Need to put it in the AI. So I'm gonna continue with it. And I think back from holiday, I dove right into the experiment for myself that I made. So I started doing the focus mate sessions like 6.5 before lunch, and then 2 after lunch, and then 2 in the evening. And I was like, let's see if I can make it work. I didn't. But also it didn't give me a good baseline. So now I'm sort of back to my baseline schedule, and I feel like it's good to have 2 weeks of baseline, and then I can do the experiments so I can compare it. And I really start to see what I did start to see is by planning my days and weeks and tracking my time, is that I start to see it more like, oh, that's instead of like, oh, I failed the plan, it's like, oh, interesting, that didn't work. Let's see why. Where can I put this task where it might feel better? And I kind of started to see my planning instead of as some restrictive thing. It's like life art, where I feel sort of proud that I'm the person that's because intentionality is like an important value of me. I don't want to live on default. I want to design my default. So yeah, I think that I really like doing the experiments, but now I have a more clear picture of how to go about it. So
I want to say one more thing, then toss it to Carey to close out. Keep an eye on counterintuitive truths. So like a counterintuitive truth would be you're chasing momentum and energy. Sometimes taking a break earlier gives you more energy longer. So it's almost like you feel like you want to go right, but you actually have to take a quick step left. So productivity is filled with these counterintuitive truths where you sort of think, I want to stay up late, but actually experiment with going to sleep 30 minutes before. Right. So, because sometimes our intuition can lead us in the wrong direction where we want to go more in this direction, but actually the answer is to take a step actually away from that direction in order to get more results towards that direction. Does that make sense?
That's very interesting, because right now I'm like, I wouldn't touch the 6 focus mate sessions that I have going, because that's at least working. But maybe if I do 5 sessions instead of 6, I can actually have a productive evening.
Yeah.
Rather than like, so that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's interesting because when I very much into habit building, and they say some of the best ways to build your habits is see when does this thing that you want to do naturally show up in your life, and try to make that the trigger rather than overlay think it or set up a million alarms. So I feel like that's so interesting where you're like, oh, today I actually have more energy. Let's see what happened before. Yeah, I just
like using the energy as a trigger.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I think we can't leave anything, when you're doing experiments, you don't want to leave anything as untouchable. So it definitely can be counterintuitive. I mean, I've had to learn this as an entrepreneur because I was just trained in a corporate environment. So it was always forced into me that you get up and you get to work right away. But working with Demir has shown me that often I can have a very slow morning, and it increases my overall fulfillment and enjoyment of my day a lot. And it doesn't actually have any impact on my productivity. I get the same amount done, or possibly more in some cases if it's actual leverage deep work. So I definitely wouldn't, in your experiments, don't consider anything as sacred.
No, I love experiments. I've experimented with like 4 hours sleep and then 30-minute blocks of sleep throughout my day, where they say if you do that, you sleep way more deeply and you get more like...
Yes.
You just...
Demir has done this.
You're getting up at 4 every morning. What are you doing? I'm like, just try this.
Yeah, polyphasic sleeping for those of you out there. So one last thing, and then I'll wrap it up. A productivity journal can be helpful here because the data tracker, the time and energy tracker, is giving you a quantitative sort of output. It's also nice to have a little sort of open piece of paper or notepad to just start to capture some of the things that are a little bit more vague and qualitative, so that you can actually fold that into your insights and start to observe things that might not show up in the actual Excel spreadsheet, but are important to factor in. So just keep an eye on that, because what I've noticed with time and energy tracking is, yes, it's the exercise, and yes, it's the data, but it's also giving you this new set of eyes. And you just sharpen your view. You start looking for things, and we know in life, if you start looking for something, you start seeing it more. And so 2 weeks of time and energy tracking gives you these eyes where you're just looking for time leaks and energy leaks and optimizations all over the place. So even when you stop your time and energy tracker, there's a halo effect where for weeks and weeks and weeks, sometimes months, you're still looking at the world through those eyes. And so that's a huge benefit of like sharpening up those eyes. The magical thinking gets pushed away a lot, and the cognitive biases get sort of reduced in the noise of that. And so you're able to see things a little bit more clearly. I encourage you to keep up with these experimentations, whether it's working straight through the weekend, which is a lot of people say, "Oh my God, don't do that." It's like, no, I love that. If you like momentum, experiment with momentum. Like, I'm going to work 4 hours a day every day, even Saturday and Sunday, because I like to create that momentum and that drive and that pulse through it. But again, you got to be connected to reality. Don't just document what works. You got to document, okay, well, this really didn't work.
Yeah. No, I think one final thing to say to that is one thing I really noticed when I did the energy tracking is when I get stuck, my energy is out the window. And I'm like, but that has nothing to do with the time of the day or whatever. It's purely that I don't know how to continue. And now I think I don't have the energy to continue, but it has nothing to do with so I think there is a million other things that are the same. Yeah. Things I can
We can have a whole other podcast episode about feelings.
Yeah, I was about to say, for future reference, pin this. We'll talk about this later, but I'd also like you to think about developing a relationship with your life map that allows you to tap into motivation and energy, even when it's not coming intrinsically from the work, right? So everybody has necessary BS in their life. You can't put lipstick on the pig. It's a pig. There's no way to make it look good. And my life map sort of has helped me tap into a deeper source of deep-seated motivation that allows me to push through those moments more readily. So pin on that. We'll talk about that in a future either episode or discussion that we have. I just want to say thank you so much. What was it, what landed with you from this discussion the most?
I really love the baseline and the experiment thing and what you said, to keep track of the things that are not quantifiable, because I think there is a lot, and to also retest things that you think are working, but see if taking out the final session there actually helps too. And some things where you're like, oh yeah, actually the times I was working at night, I did have a low cognitive task that still required focus. I think that's an interesting combination, because oftentimes we think that recoloring Google Docs, I can tell you that about Google Docs, it's not fun and it takes a lot of time. I tried to delegate it to a VA. It took her 10 times longer than me. I was like, but I have all the steps for you laid out, but I get in such a flow that's I can do that for 2 hours. It's and then listen to something that's interesting on the side. But now I'm like, oh, yeah, sometimes it's easy to forget what it was that was actually working for you. So I think this has given me a lot of ideas, and I really love doing the time and energy tracking just for I want to just keep doing, because I think tracking your time, it has shown me that I'm so much more intentional with my time when I track my time. So I don't just want to do it for 2 weeks to complete the analysis. I just want to I think, yeah. So it has given me a lot to think about, and also the approach, the connection with your life map. And I really saw that last week, where I started to doubt the plan because I wanted to do something else, and I couldn't get myself to work. I could sit down, I could have a focus mate session, I could but I could not do the work because part of my mind was doubting whether I was actually doing the right thing. And then it's so hard to just tell yourself, but it's a really good plan, but it's not enough. I noticed that I had radical clarity, and it's fragile, and today it broke. But now I saw But now I saw it happening, and I could work myself back to it. So I think that really landed with me. So thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate your time, your insights, your support. And yeah, this has been a really, really lovely evening.
Thank you so much. And thanks for being a tribe member and a boost mode member. We really love having you.
Shout out to Kate. She is amazing. And she is, right? So much to get consistent. Well, she was like, when I started, she was like, how would you rate your plan? And I would say, it's a 0. I'm not doing any of it. I know I should do it, but I'm not doing it. And she was like, a week back, how would you say it's now? I'm like, well, it's a 7. I'm doing my daily planning. I'm doing weekly, monthly. I'm just not getting through the whole list. So there is room for improvement in the quality of the planning, but at least I'm doing it. And I already focus. It's night and day. So thank you guys for making this program. Thank you for creating the boost mode. And yeah, Kate has been absolutely game changing.
Shout out Coach Kate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We'll close there. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gio. Nice to talk to you.